You hold a newborn in your arms. The night is pitch black. A branch snaps in the distance. Your heart beats faster. The fire is dying down to glowing embers. You pull the infant closer to your chest. For 99% of human history, this is not hypothetical. For about 300,000 years, raising a child was a terrifying gamble. You lived in a world where you were not the top predator. You shared the landscape with cave lions and dire wolves. You had no walls to lock them out. How did your ancestors keep small, loud, defenseless babies alive in a world built to consume them? Your baby cries. The sound carries far in the still night air. A modern parent might worry about waking the neighbors. Your ancestors worried about waking the leopards. A crying baby was a homing beacon for predators. Your brain is wired to panic when you hear an infant cry. You feel a sudden spike in cortisol and adrenaline. Your modern body still reacts to that ancient survival mechanism. Why does a baby's cry trigger such an intense physical response in you? It is because silence meant survival. Look at a modern human baby. They are born completely helpless. A newborn horse can walk within hours of birth. A newborn chimpanzee can cling to its mother's fur. Your babies cannot even hold their own heads up. They are essentially born prematurely compared to other mammals. Your brain needs to grow so large that if the baby stayed in the womb any longer, it would not fit through the birth canal. You must finish gestating them on the outside. You are carrying a heavy, fragile, demanding bundle of joy that cannot do anything for itself. How did ancient parents manage this immense physical burden while constantly on the move? The answer lies in something unique to your species. You do not raise your children alone. Think about a mother chimpanzee. She will not let anyone else hold her baby for months. She does not trust them. Now look at your own ancestors. Evolutionary anthropologist Sarah Blaffer Hrdoi calls this human trait alloparenting. Alloparenting means shared care by people other than the biological mother. You hand your baby to a grandmother. You hand your baby to a sister. You hand your baby to a friend. This simple act of passing a baby around a campfire changed the course of human evolution. Have you ever wondered why babies smile at strangers? They are actively recruiting caregivers. Your baby smiles and coos to secure attention from the group. They need the group to survive. You need the group to survive. Raising a human child requires over 13 million calories before they reach independence. You cannot forage and hunt for all those calories alone. The math simply does not work. You need a network of providers. Grandmothers played a crucial role in this ancient economy. When a grandmother stops having her own children, she redirects all her energy into feeding her grandchildren. This allowed your ancestors to have more babies, closer together, than any other ape. Who helped you when you were most overwhelmed? The threats were not just theoretical. They were visceral and constant. In 1924, anatomist Raymond Dart discovered a tiny fossilized skull in South Africa. It became known as the Tong child. The Tong child was a human ancestor who lived over 2 million years ago. The skull belonged to a 3-year-old. For decades, scientists thought this child was killed by a leopard. But modern analysis of the scratch marks on the eye sockets revealed a different nightmare. The child was killed by a massive eagle. Death could literally rain down from the sky. How do you protect a toddler from a silent threat striking from above? You keep them close. You keep them physically attached to you. You invent the first baby carrier. Long before you invented the wheel, you invented the sling. You used animal skins or woven plant fibers to bind the baby to your chest or back. This kept your hands free to forage. It kept the baby safe from ground predators and eagles. It kept the baby warm against your skin. This constant physical contact also regulated the baby's heartbeat and breathing. Your modern instinct to swaddle and rock a baby mimics the tight, swaying motion of being carried by a nomadic hunter-gatherer. Do you notice how quickly a baby calms down when you walk around with them? Fathers were heavily involved in this daily survival. The image of the ancient man leaving for days to hunt while the woman stayed at the cave is a modern myth. You lived in egalitarian groups. Everyone gathered. Everyone contributed. Anthropologist Barry Hewlett spent years studying the AKA people, a group of hunter-gatherers in the Central African Republic. He found that aka fathers are within arm's reach of their infants nearly 50% of the time. They hold them. They soothe them. They even let infants suckle their nipples to calm them down when the mother is busy. The ancient father was intensely present. What does this tell you about modern expectations of parenting? You did not have rigid schedules. You did not use sleep training. The concept of forcing a baby to sleep alone in a dark, quiet room would seem utterly insane to your ancestors. If a baby was left alone in the dark, they were as good as dead. You slept together. The entire family huddled around the fire for warmth and protection. A mother would nurse her baby throughout the night without even fully waking up. This continuous, low-level feeding kept the baby quiet and safe. The modern struggle of getting a baby to sleep in a crib is a battle against hundreds of thousands of years of survival instincts. Why do you fight your own biology? Cleanliness was another massive challenge. You had no diapers. You had no wet wipes. A baby creates a lot of waste. The smell of waste tracks predators. The bacteria in waste causes disease. You learned infant hygiene communication. This is a practice where you observe your baby's subtle body language. You learn the tiny squirm or the specific grunt they make right before they eliminate waste. When you see the signal, you hold them away from your body and over the ground. You keep your living area clean. Many indigenous cultures still use this method today with astonishing success. Have you considered that diapers are a relatively new invention? As the child grew into a toddler, the dangers multiplied. Toddlers are naturally curious and fast. They want to put everything in their mouths. You lived in environments filled with poisonous plants and venomous snakes. You could not child-proof a forest. Instead, you child-proofed the child. You allowed them to play freely but within a highly social environment. Older children watched the younger ones. You did not hover over them like a modern helicopter parent. You trusted the mixed-age playgroup to correct mistakes and learn boundaries. A scraped knee from a sharp rock was a lesson learned early. How much freedom do you give a growing child today? The transition to solid food was critical and dangerous. You did not have sterilized jars of pureed carrots. You chewed your own food and transferred it directly into the baby's mouth. This practice is known as premastication. It sounds repulsive to modern sensibilities, but it was a brilliant evolutionary strategy. You predigested the food, making the nutrients accessible. More importantly, you transferred your immune system directly to the child. Your saliva contained antibodies and bacteria that seeded the infant's gut microbiome. You were building their immune system with every bite. Are you surprised by how dirty and connected ancient survival really was? Communication was your ultimate survival tool. Language was not just for sharing stories. It was for keeping children alive. Anthropologist Polly Wiesner studied the firelight conversations of the Juhoansi Bushmen. She discovered that nighttime stories were not just entertainment. They were detailed survival maps. You told stories about where the predators hunted. You told stories about which plants were safe to eat. You passed down generational knowledge through vivid narratives. Children listened and learned the rules of the landscape before they ever walked it alone. What stories are you telling your children to keep them safe? Social bonds were the invisible walls protecting your camp. You did not have police or emergency services. You had each other. If a child was orphaned, the group absorbed them. Every adult was responsible for every child. You shared food equally, ensuring no child starved while another thrived. This extreme cooperation was not born out of noble morals. It was a brutal necessity for survival in an unforgiving world. The individual was weak, but the group was incredibly strong. When did you start believing you had to do everything on your own? Let us recreate a typical day. You wake up with the sun. The air is cool. The camp is already murmuring with activity. You secure your infant to your chest with a soft hide. You join a group of women and older children. You walk into the dense brush to gather tubers and nuts. The baby sleeps against your heartbeat. When they wake and fuss, you immediately offer a breast. You do not stop working. You dig, you carry, you talk, you nurse. You are in constant motion. Does this sound exhausting to your modern ears? It was physically demanding, but it was also deeply supported. You are never isolated in a quiet house. You are constantly surrounded by voices, hands, and shared effort. When your back aches, a sister takes the baby. When you are thirsty, a grandmother offers water. The child grows up experiencing a world that is highly responsive and deeply social. They learn that their needs will be met instantly by a wide network of people. This builds a profound sense of security. How different is that from the isolation of modern parenting? But then, everything changed. About 12,000 years ago, you made a catastrophic decision. You discovered agriculture. You stopped moving and started farming. You built permanent settlements. You might think this made raising children easier. It made it drastically worse. When you settled down, you lived in close quarters with domesticated animals. This caused zoonotic diseases to jump to humans. You lived in your own waste. Cholera and dysentery devastated infant populations. Your diet narrowed from hundreds of wild plants and animals to a few starchy grains. Nutrition plummeted. Why did you trade your healthy nomadic life for the miseries of early farming? The fields required endless labor. You needed more workers. So, you started having more children. The space between births shrank from 4 years to just 1 or 2. Mothers became exhausted. The intense, high-touch parenting of the hunter-gatherer past was replaced by benign neglect. Children were put to work as soon as they could walk. The concept of childhood as a carefree time of play disappeared. The agricultural revolution was a trap. Anthropologist Richard Lee demonstrated through his extensive studies that ancient hunter-gatherers actually enjoyed significantly more leisure time and better overall health than early farmers. You traded your ancient freedom for endless toil. Your modern struggles with parenting are echoes of this massive change. You feel isolated because you are trying to do the job of an entire tribe inside a single-family home. You feel exhausted because you lack the grandmother hypothesis in daily action. You feel anxious because your brain is scanning for leopards that are no longer there. The instincts that kept your ancient babies alive are now clashing with the modern world you have built. You look at your child sleeping safely in a quiet room, yet you still feel a deep, ancestral worry. You hold a newborn in your arms, but now you understand the ancient weight of survival that still beats in your chest.